This is a video, yeah, sorry, you can tell that I'm annoyed that I do this whole fucking video again. This is a video about a Scottish shitlord, edgelord YouTuber called Count Dankula, who has been in the news recently because he got in trouble with the authorities in Scotland under the 2003 Communications Act for making a video about his pug where he taught it to respond to the phrase, "gas the Jews." Now, Know Your Meme has some information on this. Count Dankula's hate speech trial. Background: on April 11th, 2016, Meechin uploaded a video titled, "Mate, your dog's a Nazi." Now, his video starts with a caveat about how he's just doing this to annoy his girlfriend.
My girlfriend is always ranting and raving about how cute and adorable her wee dog is. And so I thought I would turn them into the least cute thing that I could think of, which is a Nazi. Buddha, do you want to gas the Jews? Do you want to gas the Jews? Mum will gas the Jews, son. You want to gas the Jews? Do you want to gas the Jews? Come on, gas the Jews. Come on, gas the Jews, son. Come on.
Throughout the video, Dankula seems very amused by the phrase, "gas the Jews." And I get an argument sometimes about, like, what normies think about things. And they will probably interpret somebody laughing and joking "gas the Jews" over and over again as insulting to the genocide of the Jewish people. People on the internet and shitlords and stuff, they always seem to think that the internet is just this cryogenic chamber. It's surrounded by a bubble and anything outside of that never interacts with it, and there's no one who would look at that and say, "Wow, this guy thinks genocide of my people is hilarious," and see that as not funny, and also have the perception that he was advocating for genocide and trying to appeal to neo-Nazis. That is going to happen, and internet people will never acknowledge that. On October 25th, 2017, Meechin uploaded a comedy sketch in which he berates the dog for being a white supremacist, before cutting to a "We Are Number One" remix video featuring the pug shown below, which includes the 14 woofs. And his girlfriend also defended his actions and said he's not anti-Semitic or anything like that. Now, before we go further, let's take a look at what the 2003 Communications Act actually is. So the 2003 Communications Act is an act of Parliament of the United Kingdom. The act, which came into force on 25 July 2003, superseded the Telecommunications Act of 1984. The new act was the responsibility of Culture Secretary Tessa Jowell under the Tony Blair government. So the legislation is available online, and you can read the whole thing. Now, most of it is not related to anything like this. It's just related to regulation of telecommunication companies. Some of it's just consumer protection and that kind of thing. But the controversial part of the legislation is Section 127, improper use of public electronic communications network. 1. A person is guilty of an offence if he... No, she. It's not very inclusive. A. Sends by means of a public electronic communications network a message or other matter that is grossly offensive or of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character. Or B. Causes any such message or matter to be so sent. Now, considering the trial Count Dankula was found to be grossly offensive, I'm assuming that he was found guilty under Section 1A, which includes that wording. The thing is, the details of the case are actually not out, so we can't see the intimate details of the case. And I've commented on Twitter that I don't know for sure all the details of this because I don't have all of the details of it. There could be a modifying factor to it that I'm not aware of. I don't know how the prosecution actually managed to get a guilty verdict, like what they said. How did they come to that decision? Not knowing all of those details, we can only go off what we do know. And I think based on what we do know, yeah, he shouldn't be imprisoned, and I don't think it should go on his criminal record. Because the thing that stands out to me is that he's just an idiot. He made a really stupid decision. It was a dumb joke. It was offensive, but it clearly wasn't genuine, like in the sense that he was actually trying to say, "gas the Jews." I was logged in on my Twitter, so I accidentally saw a Shoe on Head tweet about this. Half of which I agree with, because I have her muted, because I just find her standing for the status quo boring and annoying, and I just got sick of it. But H. Bomber Guy had said, "The free speech warriors who slept on non-violent protesters getting jail time finally found someone worth their time defending. A guy trained a dog to do a salute when he yells Nazi things at it. The only way to get these people to talk about the white supremacists doing repeated targeting bombing of black communities in the US would be if the bombers got arrested for uploading a video of them saying something racist." And obviously it would be something racist against Jews, because it's a good thing that you have to defend. And June replied, "The joke was literally Nazis are bad." Bullshit it was. No, it wasn't. He said that his intent was to say that Nazis are not cute. It's a very obvious and simple statement that Nazis are not too cute. But that's not the same as saying that they're bad. The actual video, if you watch it, the way that it comes off is different than his own stated intent. And that could be partly what was found in the court case, I'm not sure. That he's basically laughing at the phrase, gas the Jews over and over again. So even if his intent was to say that Nazis are not cute, that's just not the way the joke came off. He went about it in a counterproductive way. You could easily interpret the video as simply saying gas the Jews is hilarious. Like, that's really funny. And I get it. People make AIDS jokes and they make dead baby jokes. And we have to defend people's right to be able to be offensive, and I actually agree with that. And based on that, I don't think this is a fair outcome, and I don't think he should be in trouble, and they should let him go. So you know what? Hashtag free Dankula. There you go. But it's so obvious that the joke was not just saying Nazis are bad. It's kind of like when somebody says something really horrible, which is obviously something really horrible, and then they just say it's just a joke. But it's like, you still said a thing that was fucking horrible. It doesn't matter if it's a joke or not. And the message of the actual joke, if you watch the video, is basically just gas the Jews is funny, and it's funny. And why would Nazis be offended by this video? They would just look at that and say, that's so funny. That dog is doing a Nazi salute, and Dankula's saying gas the Jews heaps, and that dog's reacting to it. That's funny. They don't think, oh my god, he said we're not cute. I'm so offended. Like, it doesn't challenge Nazis. Then she goes on, more people care about this because it's relatable YouTube comedy and a bizarre story. I agree with that. That's true. As opposed to political activism, I've never seen specific stories of non-violent protesters being arrested, to be honest, but I'm against that too. And then H-Bomber shows her a bunch of evidence, which she probably just ignores. I see a point. The things you're showing me are bad, and I haven't heard about them. Yep, well, there you go. Now, just quickly, other people have been prosecuted for the 2003 Communications Act. One of them was the Twitter joke trial. The Twitter joke trial happened in 2009, when a man named Paul Chambers tweeted at Robin Hood Airport in South Yorkshire, "Crap, Robin Hood Airport is closed. You've got a week and a bit to get your shit together, otherwise I'm blowing the airport sky high." He was arrested by anti-terror police at his office, his house was searched, and his mobile phone, laptop, and desktop hard drive were confiscated. He was charged with sending a public electronic message that was grossly offensive or of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character contrary to the Communications Act 2003, which sounds like the exact same thing that has happened to Dankula. Fined $385 in order to pay $600 costs. He lost his job as a consequence. Now that last part, losing your job as a consequence, that's social sanction. And I think there is no way you can actually prevent that sort of thing from happening. If an employer decides that your reputation is so ruined that they want to fire you, what can you really do about it? If there is some legal recourse somebody could take, they could try that, try and get some money out of them or something, sue for damages, something or other, I'm not sure what. But that's a different question than him actually being found guilty of something and having to pay some money. And on that, do I think let him go? Yeah, because it was so obviously a joke. Now, it's a dumb joke, it's a stupid joke. He should be able to see the ramifications of saying that. The authorities might get confused and say he wants to actually bomb the airport. You know, even some things that are put obviously as a joke, people still take stuff like that seriously because they are very concerned about threats. And that's the job of the authorities, to be worried about that kind of thing. So I would have absolutely nothing against them taking him aside, or even bringing him in for a while and having a talk to him about that tweet and saying, what were you doing, what were you thinking? Some free speech warrior people would still be angry about that and say, no, there should be no consequences whatsoever, but the world doesn't really work like that. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, that is obviously a joke. It's obviously just a bad joke that he didn't think through. I think there should be a warning, and perhaps if somebody did it again, yeah, maybe there should be legal ramifications, but if it's just a slip-up, be like, look, alright, you fucked up, but watch it. The end. And I actually see this case exactly the same as I see Count Dankula's case, which is, alright, you fucked up, there was a bad decision, it was a shit joke, people thought you were advocating for gas the Jews, and a bunch of neo-Nazis and white supremacists and stuff loved your joke, but it was obviously just you being a moron. Just be careful about seeming like you're advocating for genocide, alright? Take it easy. The end. It would still be too far for some free speech people, but for me, that would make perfect sense. And there was another situation in 2017, R versus Mwaikambo, where a 43-year-old man posted one video and 7 pictures of a victim of the Grenfell Towers tragedy to his Facebook account. Notable in this case was the rapidity of conviction. The fire occurred on 14 June, and the case was heard but 2 days later. Mwaikambo was imprisoned by Ikram J for a total of 3 months. I read about this. Basically, Mwaikambo lived next to Grenfell Tower, and he was basically rubbernecking. He was like, whoa, look at that, that's so intense. And he saw some bodies, so he took some photos of them and put them on his Facebook and was like, whoa, look at this. That would be an ongoing crime scene and investigation, and he's sort of taking materials from that scene. And also it's a massive insult to the families who may not even know that their loved ones are dead or what is going on, and then he just splashes it all over Facebook. So I understand that that has legal ramifications, and I think that's fair, but that's not really a joke situation. It's a little bit different. So I don't think that the 2003 Communications Act is entirely without merit, just based on some regulation it appears to provide. But the grossly offensive metric does seem quite subjective. So I want to round out this video talking about free speech in general. I think the kind of free speech warrior reaction has been really encapsulated by the YouTuber Vernaculus, who has gone to an extreme level of outrage about this. And I think it illustrates how being concerned about the need to make offensive Nazi-themed jokes is the most important issue facing the world to some people. Without that, you know, UK's over, free speech is over, it's the end of humanity, I don't know. I think my level of outrage is maybe at a 6.5, whereas their level of outrage is about 17. And I think, okay, fair enough, you know, your outrage can be at 17 if this is the fundamental bellwether test for freedom of speech, is saying gas the Jews. But I think the things that put my outrage at the level of 17 is like massacres, wealth inequality, Donald Trump hiring John Bolton, who is an advocate for war and torture, government corruption by corporations, the war on drugs, people unjustly being put in prison, police brutality, on and on, all these kinds of things. That's where my outrage goes to 17. Whereas this is more like, it could have problematic implications, and obviously people on the internet are going to be having very extreme and powerful reactions to this case, which I understand that. But there are other things that are also worthy of that level of outrage that do not receive that level of outrage. You can definitely see where the battle lines are drawn in terms of what issues are the important ones. And some people will say that that's whataboutism, but I don't think it is, because I'm not saying that this is not important. But Vernaculus really encapsulated this outrage about this issue in particular. I do not hold to the principle of free speech because I sympathize with a genocidal, bigoted position, as will be claimed by many during this fight. I hold to the principle of free speech so that the peaceful and freedom-loving are never silenced. If making jokes at the expense of Nazis is an example of a crime, and context... It wasn't at the expense of Nazis, come on dude. And context is irrelevant, I agree, that's a problematic precedent. Then Scotland has just set a precedent that made making fun of Nazis illegal. No, he wasn't making fun of Nazis. Scotland is a fascist state now, right? Put your unrelated political squabbles aside for now. Everyone from the moderate left to far right are pissed about this conviction. If you're more worried about being on the same side as the far right as opposed to your freedoms being trampled, you're very mistaken. On and on and on, tweet after tweet after tweet, about how incredibly super epically important this is. If the silent majority needs to speak up for one thing, that thing is freedom of expression. Don't let people shame you into silence about this case. Don't let people tell you it's a one-off thing. Don't let people cow you into submission here. Now is the time to fight! These people are the enemies of free speech. They deserve all the scorn you have. Freedom! Now look, okay, I know they'll be taken as like, I am mocking Vernaculus and mocking this issue. I am a little bit mocking Vernaculus. I'm not really mocking this issue. It's an issue, it matters, but it's not the end of the UK, and this is not Orwell's dream realised. This is just something that's shitty and wrong and that needs to be addressed. But I'm just not gonna get as torn up as some of these folks about the need to say gas the Jews so much. It's not the hill to die on. It's a hill to get badly bloodied on, and I think if the issue keeps escalating, then I will share this level of outrage, and if he goes to prison, I think that's going to ramp up my outrage a considerable amount, because this is a really, really dumb thing to go to prison over. I also don't think he should have a criminal record. But anyways, it's all totalitarianism and authoritarianism and Orwell, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, the level is just related to the fact that it's racist jokes. But I have reiterated multiple times that hashtag free Dankula. Final point is just what free speech is to me. Free speech warriors, advocates, whatever you want to call them. The reason that's sometimes put in mocking terms is because they can't necessarily define what free speech is. They say free speech is your right to express yourself however you want. But if you call fire in a crowded theatre, is that free speech? And they'll say, no, it's not, because there's a threat to that. What if you said that's just expression? I'm just expressing my desire to cause a panic, and what's wrong with that? It's not my fault if people get panicked by believing my words about the fire. They should have just chosen to not believe that. They took my free expression too seriously. Or death threats. You can say, that's just a metaphor. When I said I was going to shoot you in the face, like I was just being poetic. The free speech advocates would not be able to say why they would be against threatening somebody with death, which is why I think freedom of speech is actually defined by what it's not. Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights reads, "Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference, and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. However, Article 29 reads, specifically Section 2 of Article 29, in the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. Yes, I think like, satire, jokes, parody, those kind of things should fall within the purview of freedom of expression. So I think based on that, Dankula would go free. But if he said, you know what, I actually am saying that you should do this to Jewish people, could he potentially be prosecuted for some sort of hate speech? I think so. I think he could. Because you have to figure out what you think hate speech is. And obviously this is like an overreach by the UK government in terms of what they define as hate speech. Grossly offensive, I think, is too vague. It's too broad. So while I cannot share some of the outrage of people, in terms of just the level, yes, I agree that this is a stupid thing to get in this much trouble over. He's just an idiot who didn't think things through, and that's really just the end of it. And there's other things in the world which are much worse, but that doesn't mean that this is not an important issue. Feel free to rip me in the comments section. Re-recording this was annoying, but I got through it. Free Count Dankula.